This Thursday, November 14th at 7:30 p.m. at the Crecent Arts Centre, the Manitoba Chamber Orchestra will be welcoming not one, but two world-renowned pianists to Winnipeg. Called Dialogue, this concert will feature pianists Simone Dinnerstein and Awadagin Pratt performing concertos by Bach and Mozart. The MCO will also be performing American composer John Adams' marvelous work, his Shaker Loops. Neither Simone Dinnerstein or Awadagin Pratt are unfamiliar to Winnipeg audiences. Awadagin Pratt was here in September of 2023, opening the MCO's 2023-24 season with the music of Jesse Montgomery and Bach. And Simone Dinnerstein has also performed music of Bach with the MCO. In addition, she gave the Canadian premiere of Phillip Glass's third piano concerto with the orchestra, even performing it with them on tour in and around the Stratford, Ontario region. Dinnerstein and Pratt joined forces in this upcoming concert to create a musical dialogue with the MCO that will be very, very special for Winnipeg audiences. And joining me here in the Classic 107 studio to talk about Thursday evening's concert, I am joined by Simone Dinnerstein. Hi, Simone, and
Hi,
great to have you here.
It's great to be here.
Mm-hmm. Before we get to the concert, I got to ask, on October the 18th, your CD, The Eye is the First Circle, was released. It features Ives' monumental and virtuosic Concord Sonata. How does it feel to have the recording out? And can you talk a little bit about The Eye is the First Circle project and how you paired it up with the art of your dad?
Yes, I'm very excited about it. It came out to coincide with Charles Ives' 150th birthday, which was on October 20th. And this comes from a live performance that I gave of a larger multimedia sort of performance piece that I created called The Eye is the First Circle, where I paired the Concord Sonata with a monumental triptych that my father, the artist Simone Dinnerstein, made. Mm-hmm. He created it in the early 1970s, started it before I was born, and then included me in it as a baby. And it really depicts the world of my parents at that time, all the different things that influenced them. And it's a very autobiographical work. So I thought it would be really interesting to create a performance piece that would meld these different texts, the painting and the music, into something quite new that would explore how we become the people that we are, what influences us to create ever-expanding circles of understanding in our lives. Mm. And the title comes from the essay Circles by Emerson.
Right.
So, yeah, it was. I worked with a wonderful video artist, Laurie Allender, and a great lighting designer, Davison Scandrett, and used ambient sounds such as owls hooting and children screaming in a playground and birds. And you have those sounds are on the recording as well.
Mm. Yeah, it's such a monumental work. Did you, like, each one of the movements is named for an author, Emerson, Hawthorne, the Alcotts, and Harry David Thoreau. Did you tie any of that into the project?
Yeah, I just tied them in a more symbolic type of way in terms of the aspects of the painting that I thought of combining with those authors. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, Hawthorne, that movement almost sounds like a ghost story. It's very, very dark. And I used very dark elements of the triptych where there are some sort of dystopian children's drawings that are animated and crazy.
Yeah, the Concord Sonata by Ives, it's so big and thick. And it's a funny story or a crazy story, one or the other. I was coming back from Brandon to Winnipeg. Brandon's about 2 hours west of here. And I was in an Ives mood. And on the bus ride to Winnipeg, I sat with the score and listened to Marc-Andre Amelin's recording of the Concord Sonata. So it's a work, I know it's so big and so thick and there's just a fistful of notes. On Thursday, you're going to be thinning out the texture with music of Mozart and Bach. My first question is, how does it feel to be back performing with the Manitoba Chamber Orchestra?
I'm really looking forward to it. They're a wonderful group of musicians, and I have very happy memories of our tour together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you're performing with Awadagin Pratt. Can you talk about your friendship with him? How did you meet him, and how long have you been performing alongside him?
I think we've been friends for about 25 years or so. I was a fan of his. I loved his playing and reached out to him, and we became friends. And the first time that we met, actually, I went backstage to his dressing room before his concert, and we read Piano Four Hands together. And in the past few years, he's joined me with my ensemble, Baroquelin, which is a string ensemble that I lead from the keyboard, and we've done various Bach concertos for 2, 3, and 4 pianos. But for the past year, we've started also playing recitals together, and it's been tremendously inspiring to work with him, and it's always very, very interesting. He's such an interesting musician.
Yeah. I saw a program from the Kennedy Center where you played some Schubert and then an arrangement of Beethoven 6 for Piano Four Hands.
Yes,
so
yeah.
You've been performing with him. On Thursday, the two of you are performing Bach, and you both perform Bach so well. Your Goldberg Variations recording was #1 on the top lists back in 2007, and Awadagin's recording of the Bach keyboard concertos is outstanding. When you're rehearsing the music for two pianos, do you both agree on interpretation? I mean, there have been dissertations written about ornamentation in Bach. Like, how does that process work? And can you talk about some of the things that you work on in rehearsals?
Well, we do have very different ideas, and I think we're both very respectful of each other about it. But my feeling about collaboration, especially with two pianos, which can sound, it can be difficult as a listener to decipher the two different pianos, right? It's a lot of piano sound all at once. Mm-hmm. So I think that retaining a certain amount of individuality is actually very interesting and very helpful in hearing the polyphonic nature of the music. You can hear this is one pianist type of ornamentation, this is the other pianist type of ornamentation, and their sound. And what we mainly talk about is phrasing and voicing. Yeah. But in terms of things like ornamentation, we're allowing each other to be a little bit more individualistic about that. Mm-hmm.
And then there's the other part of the equation where BWV 1062, which is a concerto that you're going to be performing, it was originally written for two violins, and then Bach some years later arranged it for two keyboards being a harpsichord. Does any of that play a role when you're playing it at the piano? I mean, the last concert the MCO did was called Tempest, and I was talking to the conductor at the time, their concert master Carl Stobie, and he brought up a great point that piano offers so many different color and texture possibilities with Bach. Can you talk about that? And are the two of you going to be using any pedaling in the performance of the keyboard concerto?
Oh, I know I'm going to be using pedaling. Mm-hmm. I always use pedal. I think Awadagin does too. It's interesting because this transcription that Bach made, the original, the D minor double violin concerto is extremely, extremely famous. Mm-hmm. The C minor 2 piano concerto transcription that he made is less famous. He adds some ornamentation, especially in the second movement, which is such a beautiful movement with violins. He adds these grace notes, which actually I really don't like. And I think the reason why he did it is because the harpsichord doesn't sustain the way a violin does. So, mm-hmm. The ornamentation is a way of sustaining a line too. I tend to not like too much ornamentation, so we probably won't be doing all of those ornaments that Bach wrote. But I think that the piano is such a different beast than anything that Bach imagined that I really try to think much more about the nature of the music itself, of the lines, of the harmony, the lines, the voicing that I think is interesting. And that's what Awadagin and I focus on. And the piano can have so much more color mm-hmm. that we always try to use that in our playing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be just fantastic. The other concerto that you and Awadagin are performing on Thursday is Mozart's Piano Concerto No. 10, his concerto for two pianos. It was written for himself and his sister Maria Anna to perform together. there's not only a dialogue between the pianists and the orchestra, but there's very much a dialogue between the two soloists in that 10th piano concerto. I'm thinking in particular of the first movement, the way you sort of toss themes back and forth. Does the concerto create any challenges, that 10th piano concerto, as the two soloists? I mean, the parts are so prominent.
The orchestration is actually very bare. Mm-hmm. It's really, there are many, many parts of the concerto where just the two pianos are playing, which is interesting. I think that, I think that the retaining of one's own voice is wonderful in that. I once performed this two-piano concerto with another pianist where she played a Steinway and I played a Fazioli. And I thought that was really, really wonderful because they have very different sounds. And then you could really hear the dialogue. So, yeah, we're not going for uniformity. We're going for conversation between two different people and another group of people, being the orchestra.
Yeah, absolutely. Is the writing for the concerto for two pianos, is it significantly different than just the regular solo concertos that Mozart wrote?
I wouldn't say so. I think that it's all of a piece. I mean, it's earlier writing. But it's very reminiscent of the piano concertos.
Yeah, absolutely. The concert is being conducted by the fabulous violinist and conductor Aisslinn Nosky. Have you worked with her before?
I have not, no. I'm looking forward to meeting her. I'm sad that I won't be able to collaborate with Anne, but I'm looking forward to meeting Aisslinn.
Yeah. And we sort of run into one of these situations where everybody's schedule is so hectic. You're here. Awadagin, I understand, is on his way to Winnipeg. And the cost of rehearsal time is super expensive, so rehearsal time is worth its weight in gold. For you, as a visiting soloist, do you need anything from the conductor, like at that first rehearsal? And is there any communication that happens between, have you talked with Aisslinn at all about tempi before rehearsal?
We're going to meet up with her today. And then tomorrow we're rehearsing with the orchestra. So that's almost always the case. I meet with a conductor ahead of time and we go over the piece and then we meet with the orchestra. It's very, very rare to not have that take place. And I'm always very deeply suspicious of conductors who don't want to meet with me.
Beforehand. This has just been so great. I'm going to wrap up the conversation by asking, what are you looking forward to most about Thursday evening's performance with Awadagin?
Well, I think that my experience performing with Awadagin is that the performance itself is always a very glorious experience and different than rehearsing. You know, something always happens that's unexpected in a wonderful way. So I'm looking forward to that experience. And also my memory of performing here with the Manitoba Chamber Orchestra is that not only are they a very participatory group of people to play with, but the audience is a very warm audience, and that's not always the case everywhere that you go. And so I'm looking forward to that warmth from the audience.
Fantastic. Simone, this has truly been grateful and wonderful having you here. All the best to you and Awadagin on Thursday. I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic concert. Thanks so much for taking the time and stopping by and talking to me today. It's been wonderful.
Thanks so much, Chris.
For our Classic 107 listeners, Dialogues with the Manitoba Chamber Orchestra and Simone Dinnerstein and Awadagin Pratt takes place this Thursday, November 14th at 7:30 at the Crecent Arts Centre. For more details, go to the MCO.ca or go to classic107.com. I've embedded a direct link to the show page that you can find in the article about the concert that is up there now. Simone, thanks again.
Thanks.